Hi guys, so my name is Yash and today we are starting with the chapter reading number 24, equity valuation applications and processes. I repeat, reading number 24, equity valuation applications and processes. So guys, this chapter is the first chapter in the equity portion of the CFA L2 curriculum. It's a very basic chapter and the concepts which are given over here have been already understood by us in a direct or an indirect way in the CFA level 1 curriculum. So it's just a basic chapter which has been given by the authors to actually set up the foundation for the stuff which is going to come afterwards in equity. So there are some valuation chapters that are going to come in equity and some theoretical portions as well. So this chapter actually sets up the foundation for those chapters. So in a way, if you see, this chapter is very easy, but it is also important. So we need to solve this chapter very nicely and we need to understand the concepts, but the concepts are pretty easy over here. So let's move to the LOS page. So over here you can see that we have arranged the learning outcome statements from A to H. So from A to H we have the learning outcome statements, and for doing this chapter we are going to go learning outcome statement wise. So we are not going to jump from any LOS to some other LOS, but we are going to go in the pattern that this chapter has been written by the author. So we are going to divide this chapter into 4 video series. So in the first video we are going to start with LOS A and LOS B. That is, today we are going to do LOS A and LOS B. In the video after that we are going to do LOS C and LOS D. In the video after that we are going to do LOS E, and in the last video we are going to complete this chapter with LOS F, G and H. So it's a very easy chapter. In the first video, that is today, we are going to do these 2 LOSs. In the second video we are going to do C and D. In the third video we are going to cover a big LOS, that is LOS E, and in the last video we are going to cover 3 small LOSs, of which you already have a very good understanding from the level 1 knowledge, and we are going to complete these 3 LOSs and we are going to complete the whole chapter. So this is going to be the outlining of how we are going to do this chapter. You can also have a look at it over here in the notes that I have prepared. So equity valuation applications and processes is the chapter's name. So part 1 is LOS A and LOS B, part 2 is LOS C and D, part 3 is LOS E, part 4 is LOS F, G and LOS H. So we are going to cover this chapter in this manner. So along with covering the theoretical portions and understanding the concepts of the chapter, we are also going to solve all the examples in this chapter, and then separately we are also going to solve the item set types questions in this chapter, which are extremely important for conquering any chapter in the L2 curriculum. Okay, so now let's just start with the chapter and let's just give an introduction to this chapter. So what does the LOS A say? LOS A says define valuation and intrinsic value and explain the sources of perceived mispricing. So there are 3 keywords in this. First is valuation, the second is intrinsic value, and the third is the sources of perceived mispricing. Okay, so there are 3 keywords that we have to cover in this LOS. So first of all, let's start with what is valuation. So basically, what is valuation? So valuation of any asset, maybe it is a equity security, it is a stock, or it's a derivative security, or it's a fixed income security, or it's a real estate asset, it's a machine. So any asset has a value, it has a true fundamental value. Okay, so the methods or the approaches or the models through which we actually find out that value that the asset should command in the marketplace is called valuation. So valuation is the process through which we actually find the value of an asset. Okay, so now here we are not talking about the valuation of a bond, or we are not talking about valuation of a forward contract or a futures contract or valuation of options over here, or we are also not talking about the valuation of real estate, but we are actually talking about the valuation of a particular stock. Okay, so let's just keep it confined to the equity securities and focus on that. So valuation, so you can think of any big investor, you can think of Warren Buffett. In India you can think of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. So any investor, any big investor that you see today in the marketplace is actually big because he knows, he has the ability and he has that expertise to value an equity security perfectly. So he values the security, he finds the long-term value of the security by understanding the business model, by understanding the financial statements of the security, and by putting a number, putting a number to a number that security should command in the future. So suppose a simple example of valuation would be that if I have a small cap stock today that is trading at around say 100 rupees, okay, in India, in the National Stock Exchange, it's trading at 100 rupees. So I, as an investor, as a long-term investor, what do I do is I just take that stock, I analyze the industry, I analyze the company, I analyze the general economy also. So from level 1 you have also learned about the top-down analysis and bottom-up analysis. So top-down means going from the economy to the industry to the company, and bottom-up means from the company you move upwards. Okay, so whether he's doing a bottom-up or a top-down fundamental analysis, that's up to him. So if an investor just takes that stock, he also analyzes the industry, he analyzes the company very properly, he understands the business model of the company, he talks to the management of the company. So you have to imagine that he's an analyst over here, because if you see a normal investor, a retail investor like us, so the maximum that we have the maximum information that we are going to have, okay, the maximum information that we are going to have is from the financial statements of the company or from the media, the press releases that the company's C executives have made. Okay, so those are the only sources of information that we can count upon. But an analyst who is working for a very renowned equity research firm, so he can have, you know, access to the company's management, so he can take it out from multiple sources, and after doing everything, an analyst can come out with a value. Okay, suppose he thinks that after 2 years the value of that stock, which is trading right now at 100 rupees, can go to 200 rupees. Okay, so now he will tell that this stock is undervalued by 100 rupees, and according to that the portfolio manager in that company will actually take positions on behalf of the clients. And if the convergence between 100 and 200, if that 100 today converges to 200 after 2 years, okay, or whatever the investment horizon is, then the investor can earn a profit of 100 per share. Okay, so that is the basic of valuation, that you have to find out the value of the security. What security does the value, what value does the security command today? Okay, what value does the security command in the marketplace? That you have to find out. So that is the basic of valuation. So the investment success in any career depends upon valuing a security correctly. Okay, now what is intrinsic value? The second word over here, the key word, is intrinsic value. So what is intrinsic value? So intrinsic value basically means that if a person had a hypothetically complete understanding of the investment characteristics of a particular security, then the value at which he would derive is known as the intrinsic value. Okay, so I have written it over here. You can see valuation is the process of determining the value of an asset. There are many approaches and models for valuation of an asset. Investment success crucially depends upon the ability to find the correct value of securities. The intrinsic value is the value of an asset given a hypothetically complete understanding of an asset's investment characteristics. Okay, so first of all, I would like to tell you about an irony over here. So it has been given a hypothetically complete understanding. So what is hypothetically doing over here? So if you have a complete understanding about the investment characteristics of a security, then why does the word hypothetical have to come? The hypothetical word is used over here by the author for conveying that nobody can actually have 100% information about the investment characteristics of a security. There's no one in the world, there's only God who can have a complete understanding of the investment characteristics. There's no one who can have a complete understanding, that is the 100% understanding about the securities investment characteristics, and that is well versed in the investment community also. Okay, so intrinsic value is the value of an asset given a hypothetically complete. So hypothetically means, okay, that means you can say 90% or 80%, 95% complete understanding. So a hypothetically complete understanding means the value at which you will derive is called the intrinsic value. Okay, so that is called intrinsic value. And okay, practically no analyst has a complete understanding that is 100% about a stock's investment characteristics. So an analyst's success depends upon how close he gets to the intrinsic value. So that means that I, as an analyst, do not have the full information on the investment characteristics of an equity security. So now if I am analyzing a stock, I do not have 100% information about it. So my aim will be to reach as close as the true intrinsic or the true fundamental value of that stock. So if the true fundamental value of that stock is suppose 600 and I reach about 580 or 570, so I'm nearby towards that intrinsic value. So in that case I can say that yeah, I'm doing good. Okay, so too much deviation from the true intrinsic value is also not good, otherwise it cannot benefit your client, and as much as you come close to that intrinsic value, it will be better for you. Okay, now we come into the second, so I hope you have understood the meaning of intrinsic value. So now we come to the third part of it, that is explain the sources of perceived mispricing. So for explaining the sources of perceived mispricing, you can look at this. Okay, one framework divides mispricing of a security by an analyst into two sources: difference between the market price and the intrinsic value, and difference between the analyst estimate of intrinsic value and the actual intrinsic value. Okay, so now if the analyst has actually come out with an intrinsic value estimate of a particular security. Okay, so I've designed an example here. Let's just take a look at an example. Suppose the price of a stock is suppose 400. You are analyzing a stock. The price of that stock that is going on right now in the market is 400. Okay, the analyst estimate of intrinsic value. Analyst estimate of intrinsic value means that after analyzing the stock, the intrinsic value, the fundamental value at which I have arrived as an analyst is 550. Okay, but you have to know one thing, that no analyst is truly correct. So you have to understand that this is not the true fundamental value of the asset. This is not the true fundamental value of that security. You have to understand that. So the analyst has made some mistake. So I have written here, suppose the true intrinsic value of that security, this particular stock, is suppose 500. So if the true intrinsic value is suppose 500, so an analyst can come out with a value that is more than 500, or he can also come out with a value that is less than 500. So in either cases he is actually making a mistake. Okay, because he does not have 100% information about that stock. Because we know that if an analyst would have 100% information about that stock, then only he would arrive at 500. Otherwise he would not be able to arrive at 500. So he has arrived at 550. Okay, so now we can break this 550 minus 400. So this 550 minus 400, that is equal to 150, is called the perceived mispricing. Okay, this is called the perceived mispricing. So perceived mispricing means the mispricing which is perceived by the analyst. Okay, so the analyst thinks that there is a mispricing of 150, but actually if you see, the true intrinsic value is 500. So the actual mispricing in the stock is 500 minus 400, that is equal to 100. Okay, but this 50, then what is this 50 doing over here? So I told that we can break this 150 which we have got by the difference of 550 minus 400, that is equal to 150, can be broken into two parts. The first is the actual mispricing, that is 500 minus 400, that is equal to 100. So what is this 50 doing over here? This 50, additional 50 that which the analyst has taken, is called valuation error. So valuation error has nothing to do with valuation of that particular security, but it is the error because an analyst does not have a complete understanding of that security. So because of not having a complete understanding, he has made an error. He has actually made a mistake in the valuation, and that mistake is accounted by this additional 50. So you can see I have written here the true mispricing, that is equal to intrinsic value actual, the actual intrinsic value that was 500 in our question, minus price, that is equal to 400, is equal to 100, and then is the valuation error. The valuation error means the mistake that the analyst has made while valuing that stock, because he knows that he has made a mistake. Okay, he knows that he has made a mistake. So what can you quantify this in terms of? Okay, so that is the intrinsic value predicted by the analyst, that was 550 in the question, minus the actual intrinsic value. So he has deviated from the actual intrinsic value by an amount of $50 or 50 rupees, whatever you can imagine. So total will be 150. So these are the sources of perceived mispricing. One is the true mispricing. Okay, that is actual intrinsic value minus the price, and the second is the valuation error. That is the intrinsic value by the analyst minus the actual intrinsic value. So there are two sources of perceived mispricing. So this is our LOS-A. But there are few additional points also that I have written over here. The first point is our purpose should be to lower the valuation error and reach the true intrinsic value. That is very obvious from this question, that we have to reduce our valuation error, because valuation error refers to a mistake. So we have to reduce our mistakes and we have to reach the true intrinsic value. as in this sum our true intrinsic value was 500, so we have to get closer to 500. That will be very beneficial for us, okay, because we cannot get to the true 500 because we do not have the 100% information, okay, but we can actually get close to 500, right? Okay, so this should be our main purpose. Next, for an analyst to succeed in his forecasting, he should have a different opinion than the general market. According to this, there should be a market event that shall act as a catalyst to bring the securities price on a more rational level. So what does this mean? So basically, I'm talking that let me just take an example over here. Suppose there is a company you are analyzing, okay, that company's when you have analyzed that company, you have actually got a price or an intrinsic value, I'm sorry, not the price but an intrinsic value, the true fundamental value that the company should command equal to $200, but the company is actually trading in the market at $400. Okay, so the company is trading at $400, you have got an intrinsic value at $200, okay, the true fundamental value according to you. So you can say that actually the market, the general market in which that stock is trading, is actually overvaluing that stock. Okay, you can say that because according to the market, the stock according to the analyst, according to the analyst has given, according to the analyst, the market has given extra value to that stock, okay, of the account of 200 rupees. So what I mean to say over here is that there should be a catalyst event, there should be a corporate event or a market event, okay, that should actually bring the price down from 400 to 200, and the price should converge from 400 to 200 within the investment horizon of the client so as to prove beneficial. That means that it may be any corporate event, such as some issue, some corporate governance issue has been reported in the company, or the revenues, the projected revenues of the company do not meet up the standards of the analyst or the company's own standards or own predictions. So there may be any corporate or any market event that will actually force that price to converge to 200 because it acts like a catalyst. So now what is a catalyst? A catalyst means that something that awakens the market. So the general market had been overvaluing that stock. Okay, now what will happen? As soon as that news comes up, as soon as that event comes up, as soon as that corporate event comes up, what will happen is that the market will get awakened, and the market will start knowing that we had actually overvalued that stock. Now let us pull it down to the actual level what it commands, to a more rational price level. So that is what I mean by when I say for a catalyst or a corporate event. Now let us look at an example over here. We have a very good example that has been given. Example 1. Inferring market expectations. On 21st September 2000, Intel Corporation issued a press release containing information about its expected revenue growth for the third quarter of 2000. The announced growth fell short of the company's own prior prediction by 2 to 4 percentage points and short of analyst projections by 3 to 7 percentage points. In response to the announcement, Intel's stock price fell nearly 30% during the following 5 days, from $61.5 just prior to the press release to only $43.31 5 days later. So actually what has happened is that on 21st September 2000, Intel Corporation actually released its financial statements, and it also released a press release about the key highlights of the financial statements. So there it was found out that the actual revenue that Intel had earned fell short of the management's own prediction by 2 to 4 percentage points, that is given over here, 2 to 4 percentage points, and short of analyst projections also by 3 to 7 percentage points. So that is the reason that the stock which had been trading at 61.5 prior to the press release fell to 43.31. Okay, because the expectations had been beaten, and you people already know that the market runs on expectations. Once the expectations have been destroyed, then eventually the market price of that share will go down. It will fall very drastically. Okay, now to assess whether the information in Intel's announcement was sufficient to explain such a large loss of value, Cornell estimated the value of a company's equity as the present value of the expected future cash flows from operations minus the expenditures needed to maintain the company's growth. So basically this is the guy known as Cornell, who is maybe an equity analyst. Okay, so he's valuing the stock of Intel. Okay, so now he's valuing the stock of Intel from a free cash flow model. So free cash flow model, we'll be studying this free cash flow model when we come to the equity valuation part. Okay, practical valuation part when we come to it. So there is a full chapter that has been devoted to the free cash flow model. So we will not jump onto it right now, but we will do it properly in that chapter. Now, using a conservatively low discount rate. So he has used a low discount rate. Okay. Cornell estimated that Intel's price before the announcement, 61.5, was consistent with the forecasted growth rate of 20% a year for the subsequent 10 years and then 6% per year thereafter. So basically, you have to look at what he's doing over here. So basically, he's doing reverse engineering. Now, what is reverse engineering? He actually knows the market price of the stock pre-announcement. Pre-announcement price was 61.5. So you all know the model, that is the dividend discount model, in which P0 is equal to D1 by RE minus G. So what has he done over here? He knows the dividend part of it, he knows the price, he also knows the required rate of return. So he has put all those three elements, okay, and he has actually found out the growth rate that is implied by the market. Again, he has put the price, P0 is equal to 61.5, he has put the dividend, he has put the required rate of return, and he has manufactured the growth rate by reverse engineering method that stock is commanding right now in the marketplace. Okay, the market's implied growth rate. Okay, so he has done that. So that is 20% per year for the subsequent 10 years and then 6% per year thereafter. Intel's price after the announcement, $43.31, was consistent with the decline of the 10-year growth rate to well under 15% per year. In the final year of the forecast horizon, the projected revenues with the lower growth rate would be 50 billion below the projected revenues based on the pre-announcement price. Okay, so one is the pre-announcement price, that was 61.5. So based upon that, there was a growth rate, and after the news had come about, okay, there was certain price. On that price also you can find the growth rate. So he's talking that the revenue would be $50 billion lower than the projected revenues based on the pre-announcement price. Okay. Because the press release did not obviously point out to any changes in Intel's fundamental long-run business conditions, Intel attributed the quarterly revenue growth shortfall to a cyclical slowing of demand in Europe. So the shortfall that had come in its revenue, it claimed it was due to the cyclical slowdown in Europe. Cornell's detailed analysis left him skeptical that the stock market's reaction could be explained in terms of fundamentals. Now basically I wanted to come to this part. Assuming Cornell's methodology was sound, one interpretation is that investors' reaction to the press release was irrational. An alternative interpretation is that Intel stock was overvalued prior to the press release. This is what I wanted to show you. An alternative interpretation is that Intel stock was overvalued prior to the press release, and the press release was a kind of a catalyst that caused the movement towards a more rational price. Look at this. I have highlighted it. So Cornell was actually coming to that decision that the market had actually overvalued the stock of Intel. The market had actually overvalued the stock of Intel, and after that corporate event or that news came in, it acted like a catalyst and it reduced the price of Intel to 43.31, and that was a more rational level. This is what I was telling you right now, that you actually need a catalyst. You need a catalyst that may be a market event, general market event, or it may be also a corporate event to actually low down the price of that stock or make the price of the stock higher also in case it was undervalued, so that you can actually get confidence upon your projections. Okay, now even though the release itself did not contain sufficient long run valuation information, how would one evaluate these possible interpretations? Okay, so here if Cornell believes that the investors were irrational in determining the valuation, okay, so if Cornell believes that investors were irrational, what he could do is that Intel's growth rate of revenue was 20% before the pre-announcement, as it was given here. It was 20% a year for subsequent 10 years. Okay, the pre-announcement one. He could compare that with the benchmark. It could be company's annual revenue growth, the actual revenue growth, or it could be the industry growth or any other revenue growth he could compare it with. Okay, so he could compare with that, and then he could find out that whether the investors are irrational or not. So it has been given here to evaluate whether the market reaction to Intel's announcement was irrational or a rational reduction of a previously overvalued price. One could compare the expected 20% growth implicit in the pre-announcement price. So see, it is written here 20% growth implicit in the pre-announcement price. Okay, so implicit means it has been already included in that pre-announcement price. So if you reverse engineer it and you find out the growth rate, that is the implied growth rate by the market is giving it how much growth rate. Okay, for example, the company's actual revenue growth, the industry's recent growth, or forecast of the growth of the industry or the economy. Finding the growth rate implied in the company's stock price is an example of using a valuation model and a company's actual stock price to infer market expectations. This is what I was telling you right now, that what has Cornell done? He has actually used the dividend discount model or the free cash flow model, which he was actually using for valuation. Using that free cash flow model, what he has done is he has put the dividends, he has put the free cash flows, he knows the price, he knows the required rate of return. So why can't he find the growth rate that is implied by the market for that stock? He has done exactly that using the valuation model. Okay, finding the growth rate implied in the company's stock price is an example of using a valuation model and a company's actual stock price. See, the actual stock price to infer the market expectations. So to infer the market expectations means that market is expecting what growth rate for the stock. So actually, what conclusion did he come upon? His actual conclusion is given over here, that he actually came to a conclusion that the market had actually overvalued this stock. Okay, the market had actually overvalued Intel stock. It had given it more respect than it actually deserved. And after that corporate event came in, after that news came in that the revenues had actually declined by even the projections of the company and the analyst projections, so it acted like a catalyst, and after acting like a catalyst, it was reduced to a much rational price level. Okay, with which Cornell maybe he had estimated like that. Okay, so this would be the answer to this question, that that Intel stock was actually overvalued. The market was giving Intel much more respect than it actually deserved, and to open the market's eyes, the corporate event came in, it acted like a catalyst, and after that event came in, the price fell and it reached a more rational level which Intel actually deserves. Okay, this should be the actual answer to this question. Okay, now so this completes our LOSA. So let's just summarize about LOSA, what we have learned. So first we read about valuation, that what is valuation. Next we talked about intrinsic value, that what is intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is the value which will be derived if an analyst has a hypothetically complete understanding of the investment characteristics of a security. Okay, then after that, after studying about intrinsic value, we studied about the two sources of perceived mispricing. What were the two sources? The first source was the actual mispricing, that is the actual intrinsic value minus the price. Okay, and the second part was the valuation error. What was valuation error? The intrinsic value predicted by the analyst minus the actual intrinsic value of the security. And then after that, we also talked about this example. We talked about that the catalyst event, the event that should actually act like a catalyst to awaken the market and to give the stock the more rational price level. And one more point that I want to stay over here is that the time horizon within which the convergence should happen is very important. Okay, if the convergence between the prices and between the price and the fundamental value which the analyst has estimated, okay, if suppose the price right now is going on at 100, the analyst has predicted a fundamental value of 200. So if 100 does not converge into 200 at the right time, so if he has forecasted a time of 2 years, but it does not actually converge within 2 years, then the optimum profits that should be made for the client will not be made. So that will also be not beneficial for us. Okay, now so this completes LOSA. Now let's move on to LOSB. LOSB. So LOSB basically talks about what? Let's just read the language of LOSB. See, LOSB says explain the going concern assumption and contrast a going concern value to a liquidation value. So explain the going concern assumption. So we all know about a going concern assumption because we have been reading financial reporting. We have also read some of we also have some accounting knowledge. From there we can actually explain the going concern assumption. So what is the going concern assumption? A going concern assumption is the assumption that the company will be going on forever. Okay, the company will be continuing operations for a foreseeable period. Okay, so that is the going concern assumption. So whatever valuation technique that we are assuming over here is actually according to the going concern principle, right? Whatever valuation technique, it may be the dividend discounted model, it may be the free cash flow model, it may be the residual income model, it may be the private equity model. Okay, it may be any model that we are using for valuation, not private equity, I'm sorry, the multiples valuation model. So any model that we are using is based on the fact that the company is a going concern and it will continue operations for the foreseeable period. Now it is talked about two types of value, going concern value and a liquidation value. So basically, let's talk about these two types of values. What is a going concern value? A going concern value is the value which is based upon the going concern assumption for a company. So whatever value we derived by applying the valuation models is actually a going concern value, because we do it by taking the going concern assumption. So whatever valuation techniques that we are going to study about DDM, about FCF, about residual income, about the multiples valuation models, it's actually based upon the fact that it will be a going concern, the company will be a going concern. So going concern value is very easy. So now let's just explain what the going concern value talks about. It actually talks about the management's skills and the skills and the talent of the management to collectively manage the assets of the company. So basically, how can a company remain a going concern? If it has a good management. Okay, if it has a good management and that management knows how to use the resources very optimally, okay, reduce the cost of the company, increase the profits of the company. So if the management is well talented, well educated, and it also has integrity, only then can the company survive for the long run. Okay, so that is what incorporates into the going concern value. And then what is liquidation value? Okay, liquidation value is very easy. Liquidation value is not used much often, but it is used when the company is actually getting dissolved. So when the company is actually getting dissolved, what we do, we sell the assets one by one. Okay, we are selling the assets in isolation separately. Okay, we sell the assets, we get the amount. Okay, we get a value, and we then also settle the liabilities. Okay, so by selling the assets and settling the liabilities, the net value that at which we arrive is called the liquidation value. So liquidation value is not our focus, but going concern values are main focus. So we studied about the going concern and the liquidation value. Let's just read the dictation from here. The value of a firm based on the going concern assumption is called going concern value. It is the value which is found out by all valuation models. It reflects the managerial skills in collectively managing the assets. Next, liquidation value. The value of the firm if the firm is dissolved and the assets are sold separately and the liabilities are settled. It would result in liquidation value. So hence we have completed LOS A, which was a little lengthy LOS. It took us a lot of time. But LOS B was fairly very simple, because it actually had nothing, just two definitions that we had to learn. So we understood everything. We understood LOS A, we did an example. We also understood LOS B, the going concern value and the liquidation value. So in the next video, we will be covering LOS C and LOS D. So be ready for the next video. It is going to come very shortly. And I hope guys you liked this video. And if you liked it, please click the like button. Please subscribe to my channel and please share it with all those people, those who are finding any trouble relating to this chapter. Thank you very much.